looks like after that night of Halloween and recording, this camera is finally dying. It says check card. Card is in there. Admittedly though, the SD card slot, it seems to be having some trouble retracting and taking that in. It is just no longer accepting an SD card. What if I just hold it in? Hold it in. No. What if I just try a different SD card? Let's try 64 gig. Down from that 128 gig. No. Same issue. It's just popping out. I don't like recording with my phone because it runs at a completely different frame rate to everything else, because my phone is made in America and very American in its programming and stuff. It doesn't support 25 frames per second, where everything else I've got, especially this, is all running PAL, which is 25 or 50 frames per second. So, I don't know. I'll either have to make it change or what. But that's why sometimes when you see, people in New Zealand record things with their cell phone, the lights are flickering and stuff in the background. It's just because it's made for the wrong country and nobody cares enough to fix it. What a bummer. That's a bummer. Big bummer. Because even my large broadcast camera has faults with it now, just due to age and not being used much. And this camera hasn't magically fixed itself. And I'm genuinely sad. It was great. Had a little bit of zoom. Has a whole screen you can look at. It's touchscreen in case you need to do touchscreeny things. It flips around. So I got this view, zoom. It has stereo inputs that I've got this microphone and wireless. Now I'm stuck using a GoPro Hero 6. Not my choice. But moving on, it's time for mail time. What is this? Professional light. Ooh. Here. Hey. Ooh. Alright, here we go. It's just a basic UV light. Oh, I can really feel the heat coming off of it like this. So I watched a couple episodes of Gordon Ramsay's Hotel Nightmare, and it convinced me to get a UV light, considering I spend my time in hotels quite often for work. So I thought I'd have a little snoop around. Now this package, I've ordered this 5 times, and this is the only time it's actually gotten into New Zealand. It's a little gun toy. That is much louder than I thought it would be. I'll test this out in the morning. Although, only problem is I don't seem to have any ammo. It needs Orbeez or something. I'll figure that out later. Mouthguard. And of course, my Microsoft Excel pin. Trust me, I know my sheet. So I'm just working on the little scare compilation from Halloween. And so I paid for this music service thing, whatever it is. It's called Filmstro. And it's supposed to be able to make it so that you can basically make custom music tracks, you know, so the creator or artist, he makes a bunch of little samples and stuff. And with this software, you're able to do some minor modifications to basically the volume of the tracks, and it does the rest. And so you do that by adjusting these little waveforms and stuff that are on this timeline. Only problem is when you export it, it completely ignores that and it just sets it all to 0. So it's just a really quiet backing track with no depth to it at all. In fact, it's none of these. No momentum, no depth, no power. And here's the basic timeline for that video. Very little to no editing. Honestly, I could have spent hours and hours working on it, but the problem is each time I tried to go back in my security camera footage and record it, the recording that is on the drive, it would skip frames, and sometimes it would play it in like half speed, slow motion or whatever, and it was just too inconsistent for me to want to use it in a video, which is pretty rare. There's many other times I've made videos where I've used a security system and security cameras as just normal video cameras, and they've been perfectly fine. This is quite possibly the first year I've actually had trouble with using security camera footage and stuff as video content. So I think next year I'll just set up some GoPros and maybe have the app open on my phone. I'll find a way to sync things up a bit more. I've given up on this. I honestly don't even want to post it because it's nothing to how I'd imagined it. But at the end of the day, the whole goal of that video was purely to have this little compilation thing. You know, I don't want to be putting any more work into it than that. And I've also got one short little clip that I'll be chucking on Instagram, which is actually included at the end of this video, slightly edited, of course, just to make it suit for this format. I didn't plan on doing this for a while, to be honest, but it's also because this NUC, it's got Windows 10 Pro installed on it, and I don't want to waste a Windows 10 Pro key, a nice legit version. It's even got the tag on the bottom indicating the key. And I thought it was installed on an M.2 drive in here, but after opening it up, I see it's actually just a Crucial drive in here. An SSD Crucial drive that I should be able to just pull out. That's fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to pull out another SSD to chuck in here. It might be about the same size or maybe slightly smaller. And I'm going to install Home Assistant on that. And finally migrate from a Raspberry Pi running Home Assistant to having this NUC running Home Assistant. Using Berliner Etcher, I am now putting the OS onto this 128 gig SSD here. That's going to be the one that's going to be running on the NUC. Now, before I put it in, there are some prerequisites. I just need to adjust some some BIOS settings. Hopefully this little screen still works. It's been sitting there for years. Hey, there we go. Bedroom TV to the rescue. It was actually able to get me in. Alright, so I am looking for, let's see, I'm in UEFI boot. Now I want boot. We want to disable secure boot. That's not something that we want. Let's see, save changes. Yes. That should be the NUC all set and ready for the hard drive to go in and the new operating system to be running and active. That is, unless there's some other issues with this drive. A bit of a long story short here, I had a lot of trouble trying to install this image onto this SSD via the recommended methods. While the idea was to download one file and use a single application to then write the image onto the drive, it didn't actually turn out to work like that. Instead, what I had to do was download the image, decompress the image with one application, and then write the image to the drive with another application in order to make everything work. I tried a lot of different iterations to do all of this and finally eventually found one way that actually works. None of the recommended methods that are on the website worked at all for me, but maybe that's just a unique circumstance that I seem to have fallen into. And look at that! It's actually saying Home Assistant OS. So it's actually installed on there, even though the computer is reporting this as being a completely empty, unallocated drive, which isn't unusual because it is running on a file system that is unfamiliar to Windows OS. It's probably running on like ZFS or something. I can't remember all of the other file systems. Looks like it is doing just fine, so I'm going to connect a network cable to it. After not looking for a cable at all and coming straight here, I've got it sat here on the bench. I've got a network cable plugged in. It's only a short one, which is why I didn't plug it in the other room. And I'm going to power it on and log in. Oh, there we go, look at that. And it's even made a bunch of the connections to the appropriate things. And so look at this. These are basically two identical systems running in unison. Fantastic. With that note, I think it's time to shut down the Pi system that's currently running. I'm going to transfer over the IP address assignment to the new system, as well as the Zigbee dongle and stuff, and this is should be basically done. Here's the little Raspberry Pi. I'll stick my finger in the fan there. I can unplug that. So this little power supply has actually been running off of a network connection that is powering security cameras and stuff. So it goes from 12 volt and then it drops to this 5 volt, which then plugged into the Pi. But of course, that's no longer needed. I just used these twist ties here to hold it on the wall. And as you can see, I just stapled it to the wall, and hey, whatever works, you know? All right, so here's the NUC installed. I've just used this twist tie stuff to hold it in. Okay. Wow. Other than some slight issues with setting up the OS on the drive itself, there were next to no real issues with this migration. Now, I am going to keep the original system handy just in case there's issues and stuff with this. I do fear that there will be some sort of overheating issue. But, you know, I can hope. So I'm going to keep this handy just in case I need to roll back to running on a Pi. But otherwise, everything seems to be working. Here is the power usage before the upgrade, and here's the power usage after the upgrade. This little spike here, that could have been just the server. But for the most part, it looks like everything is running one and the same. And everything seems to be running just fine as it did before. So we got the lows of 112 watts with the highs of 137 watts. Here we got the highs of 142 watts and some lows of 110 watts. So a quick little update while letting things settle in. It seems that everything is running just fine. Actually, nothing's working at all. The NUC completely crashed, and also that GoPro audio is absolutely shocking and wasn't able to pick up most of what I was saying, which is also why there's lots of parts that have been skipped over so far in this video. On day 2, I came home from work and found that nothing was responsive. I came into the little network closet and found that the NUC was off, even though it was still receiving power, and it would not turn on at all. That's really frustrating, considering the amount of time and effort I put into just to get the system working in the first place. And it seems that it is just dead for some reason, even though the power supply for it is perfectly fine and giving out power. The NUC just refuses to power on in any way whatsoever. So I guess all that was for nothing. Back to the OG Raspberry Pi.
Whoa! 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 Tired of living broke, so before I sleep I pray. Then I woke up to my money in the bank. Then I woke up to a chick that ain't complain. Real big goals and my homies want the same. Gangsters moving silence. We been out shutting up the doubters. Fly guys out of public housing. They slow to betting at 1,000. All them blessings I've been counting.
I'm going bush, mate.
Just gotta set the appropriate fibre pairs. Traverse through the bush, following this black cable. Just setting up a bit of an internet connection here for the camera I'm working on. It's got fibre running to it because it's such a long distance.
Following along here, we're coming to the end of this 200-meter fibre run. I then begin setting up my tripod so I can get my camera sorted and see that there's this tree in the way of my shot. I have a little bit of rope on hand and we end up working together to try and figure out if we can throw something and get it caught on at least some of the branches to tidy up my shot a little bit. Hey, one twig down! And we end up spending quite a bit of time on this task without making much progress.
Yank?
Go for a yank. Oh! Good catch! I finish up setting up my camera, running the SDI lead and chucking it on the tripod. Then I gotta spend some more time figuring this tree out. Tying sticks to the rope, throwing it on the tree, pulling it different ways, just trying to clear up my shot that little bit more.
So I've got that camera set up, still have that tree in the way, unfortunately. That camera's got an SDI feed running to this live view unit here, which is using that fiber that's been run to transmit it to the main base. Capture the signal from this second camera I've got there. It's just doing a wide shot. It's plugged into power, so it can sort of just sit there forever.
Then it's back to throwing ropes and sticks at this tree. I've changed the rope out to something else that was in my car, but luckily this family that was watching by decided that they would be an absolute legend and help out. This guy dived into the water like it was nothing in order to help break those branches off that were blocking my view. He'd only planned on being here to relax and watch the show, but instead he ends up doing a great job clearing out the shot in order for the rest of the day to go really smoothly. Now, that was just the starting section. Next we moved on to another point of this long time trial race. Of course, after packing up all this equipment... Oh, video cut out a little bit there. That's what I get for using my phone. But I got down safe and sound. I slipped a little bit, but luckily I was pretty close to the ground. I didn't hurt myself. So I'm gonna roll up this cable and move on. The rest of the day went a whole lot more smoothly. Other than the rain, of course.